Chapter 5. The Painters, Past and Present. The following individuals are just a small representative of the many talented artists that have painted for Willet Hauser Architectural Glass Incorporated. They are shown here in order of the era in which they worked with the studio. Henry Matthews. Irish-born Henry Matthews, 1907 to 1967, was trained by the renowned stained glass artist Harry Clarke in Ireland before joining Willet Studios in 1928. During his time at Willet, Matthews painted many important projects, including windows in the chapel at Bryn Mawr Presbyterian Church, Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. He also served as Anne Willett Kellogg's supervisor during her apprenticeship from 1953 to 1957. There are 2 photos of Henry Matthews over the years in the painter's booth. Raymond DeHaven. Raymond DeHaven, 1907 to 1991, known as D by his fellow artisans at Willet Studios, obtained his art training from what is today the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, before joining the Willet Studios in 1925. During his time at the studio, DeHaven was principally a glass painter, but he also designed windows on occasion throughout his career. He excelled at highly detailed figurative painting and portraiture. He served as a supervisor for apprentices, including teaching both Muriel Willet, Henry Lee Willett's wife, and Anne Willett Kellogg to paint glass. And on the left is shown the Canticle of the Sun, painted by DeHaven for Bryn Mawr Presbyterian Church, Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. And on the right is a photo of Raymond DeHaven painting. He retired from the studio in 1974 due to failing eyesight. Arnold's Bergs. Arnold's Bergs, 1906 to 1993, is regarded as one of the great stylistic glass painters of the Willet Studios, especially when he was teamed with the design work of Marguerite Godin. His glass painting style is very distinctive, characterized by the use of red flesh paint and painting on both sides of the glass, with his meticulous line work on the exterior and his application of matting or shading on the interior. Another of Bergs' identifying characteristics was the little 8-pointed star placed somewhere in every window he painted. Arnold's was one of the few glass painters who actively painted in oils and exhibited his work as well. Although he was born in Vitebsk, Russia, he was an ardent Latvian patriot and was well known to the Latvian community in the Philadelphia area. After graduating from the National Academy of Fine Arts in Riga, Latvia, he began his active career as an artist, devoting a considerable amount of time to stained glass painting. Despite being sent to Germany as forced labor during World War II, he continued his interest and devotion to art. With the conclusion of the war, Bergs resumed his career as a full-time painter, exhibiting frequently in Western Europe. For a while, he also engaged in stage design. In 1950, Bergs immigrated to the United States and soon recommenced work as a glass painter, joining the Willet Studios in 1953. His painted windows illuminate cathedrals and churches throughout the United States, including St. John the Divine Cathedral, New York, New York, the First Presbyterian Church, San Bernardino, California, Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, California, First Presbyterian Church, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and the National Shrine of Our Lady of Czestochowa near Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The windows of the shrine were featured on the cover of the spring 1976 Stained Glass Quarterly magazine. Although Bergs had retired several times, he was always willing to be called back for a special project. He died in 1993 at the age of 87. Shown are 2 large panels of stained glass windows painted by Arnold's Bergs, which grace the interior of the Shrine of Our Lady of Czestochowa in Doylestown, Pennsylvania's main church. They depict the history of Christianity in Poland and the United States. Joseph Diono. Italian-born Joseph Diono, 1904 to 1987, began his training at the age of 13 when his talent was discovered by a social worker. He mentored with Nicola DiCenzo, who fostered the young artist's talent, generously funding his tuition to the Philadelphia School of Industrial Arts. Diono continued to work with DiCenzo until 1943, only briefly stopping to work in a shipyard during World War I. In 1944, he joined Willet Studios, where he excelled at cartooning, particularly the work of fellow Willet artisan Marguerite Godin. He did all the glass painting for many major projects, including the Episcopal Cathedral of St. Philip in Atlanta, Georgia, and 2 exceptionally large windows in the First Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia. Other examples of his work can be found at West Point Military Academy, Washington National Cathedral, the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City, and the chapel at Princeton University in Princeton, New Jersey. Additionally, Diono created memorial windows for Presidents Garfield and Johnson. Here's a photo of Joseph Diono offering a musical interlude to fellow Willet artisans. From left to right, Fred Conisi, Guido Di Curzio, Bob Stinger, and Joseph Diono. Diono was also an accomplished canvas painter. His paintings are on view at the Michener Museum in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Diono retired in 1974 after devoting nearly 70 years to the art of painting. Magdi Mushriki. Trained at the College of Fine Arts, Alexandria University in Alexandria, Egypt, Magdi Mushriki worked as an interior designer in Kuwait before locating to the United States to pursue his talent. In 1998, Mushriki joined Willet Hauser Architectural Glass as a painter. Working in a realistic and painterly style, Mushriki applied paint in washes which overlie one another, similar to the way in which a watercolorist works. His method is a unique way of handling the medium, as it's an additive means of applying paint as opposed to the subtractive way of working employed by most glass painters. Mushriki's work outside of painting on glass includes jewelry design, wood sculpture, and painting on canvas. He has had many solo exhibitions, both in the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Kuwait, and in the United States. He established Mishu Jewelry with his daughter Gianna in 2009, after the father-daughter duo gained international recognition when they were awarded first place by the World Gold Council in Auditions Arabia. The premier gold jewelry design contest is said to be the Oscars of the Middle East jewelry world. Though he now works in various other mediums, Mushriki always welcomes the opportunity to paint on glass. Melissa Janda. Melissa Janda serves as the art department manager and is a senior glass painter at Willet Hauser Architectural Glass Incorporated. Though Janda is adept at all aspects of stained glass production, she specializes in glass painting, design, and restoration work. Before entering the world of stained glass, she received her BFA from the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, where she majored in drawing with a minor in illustration. Her professional experience with the craft first began in 1993 when she worked at Conrad Schmidt Studios. Janda then went to work at Jaeger Studios before leaving to manage her own studio, Melissa Janda Studios in Chicago, Illinois, and later Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for 10 years while she subcontracted work as a glass painter. During her time in Chicago, she also worked for a handful of studios, including Curran Glass Studio, Regina Art Glass, Glass Art and Decorative Studio, and Two Fish Art Glass. In 2008, Janda returned to Conrad Schmidt Studios before relocating to Winona, Minnesota, to manage the Willet Hauser Art Department. She has a deep appreciation for the great traditions of stained glass. As she explains, "I have one foot firmly planted in the rich past, with the other stepping forward into the future of contemporary innovations." Besides her many years of experience, Janda offers Willet Hauser Architectural Glass Incorporated a spirit dedicated to the craft, in which she is constantly striving to learn new techniques through participation in a multitude of workshops and classes. On the left are 3 photos: Melissa Janda cartooning in the studio, an example of Janda's painted work for the personal ordinariate of the Chair of St. Peter, Houston, Texas, and Janda painting in the studio. And on the next page, 4 presidents as Freemasons, designed by Willet Hauser Architectural Glass Director of Art Development, Kathy Jordan, and painted by Melissa Janda. The windows were designed and fabricated for the Masonic Library and Temple, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in 2016. Miriam Zagar. Miriam Zagar is a Swiss native who began her art education with the study of art history at the University of Basel, Switzerland. Fascinated by the painted pottery of the Swiss ceramist Jakob Stucki, she took up pottery at the California College of Arts in Oakland, California, followed by a 2-year education in fine arts at City College of San Francisco. She began her study in stained glass painting and completed her full apprenticeship while training there. In recent years, she has remained a painter for Willet Hauser Architectural Glass on a part-time basis while independently developing her own work with painted glass. Zagar likes to improvise on mostly contemporary and highly stylized designs, playing with contrasting light and dark paint tones. Her work can be seen in churches and cathedrals such as St. Martin's Episcopal Church in Houston, Texas, Davidson United Methodist Church in Davidson, North Carolina, the Washington, D.C. Latter-day Saints Temple in Kensington, Maryland, B'nai Israel Synagogue in Rochester, New York, and the Church of the Holy Redeemer in Longport, New Jersey. Shown is a detail of opening day painted by Miriam Zagar for Elmira College, Elmira, New York. Chapter 6. Studio Staff, Past and Present. Willet Hauser Architectural Glass Incorporated has been fortunate to have had countless skilled artisans assist in the success of the studio over the last century. The following individuals, both past and present staff, are a mere fraction of the talented people we have been honored to have on our team. William Stewart. William Stewart, 1918 to 1964, served as Willet Studio's first general manager. The studio's success with the 1965 World Fair project owes much to Stewart, who set up the entire commission. He began as a studio helper in 1939, leaving to serve as a Seabee in the Navy during World War II. After his return to the studio in 1945, Henry Lee Willet promoted Stewart to general manager, a new role that would benefit the direction of the studio at that time. Crosby Willet served as his assistant in 1950 when he was hired to aid in studio management. Following in his father's footsteps, his son, William G. Stewart, began his role as general manager for Jim Hauser Sr. in 1980. On the left is a photo of William Stewart selecting glass in the selecting department. On the right, Willet Studio artisan Sam Long glazing a leaded glass window in the Philadelphia studio. Lucien Kanay. Lucien Kanay, 1923 to 1992, trained as an engineer in France before relocating to the United States during World War II. Employed by the Willet Studios, Kanay ran the faceted department, where he made all the shop drawings and patterns, set schedules, ordered materials, and designed nearly all of the frames. Given his background in engineering, he worked closely with manufacturers and engineers, solving complex problems for both faceted and leaded projects, such as the framing issues for Temple Beth Zion in Buffalo, New York, where the frames were completely supported by tension steel cables. There's a photo of Henry Lee Willet as he observes artisans as they pour epoxy on a faceted panel. The faceted department was relocated from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Winona, Minnesota in 1980. Richard Stewart. Richard Stewart began his career with the Willet Studios in 1944 during World War II, working as a glazier. He eventually served as the studio's main pattern maker, creating full-scale reproductions for the original designs used in production. He retired in 1974. The next photo shows students as they visit Willet Studios to learn about the time-honored tradition and craft of stained glass in the 60s. Kathy Jordan. During a career that has spanned over a quarter of a century, Kathy Jordan is well known in the industry for the restoration and preservation of historic stained glass. With a focused energy and a wealth of experience, she serves as the Director of Art Development for Willet Hauser Architectural Glass. In 2014, Jordan was personally selected by John Phillips Jr. to lead Willet Hauser into its next phase. Her broad experience relates to a variety of styles, giving the studio the ability to expand the spectrum of work produced. Recognized and regarded as one of the best glass painters in the country, Jordan specializes in historic vitreous panel replication and condition assessment. She has vigorously sought out and studied nationally and internationally with notable industry leaders and accomplished glass artists, exploring and acquiring traditional and contemporary approaches. She is a valued part of the Willet Hauser family, not only for her artistic mastery, but for her business experience in the stained glass industry as well. Her personal vitae includes prestigious preservation contracts and awards, a long list of philanthropic endeavors that tie not only to her professional expertise, but to her generous spirit. There is a 2014 photo of Kathy Jordan at West Point, Willet Hauser's longest-running commission. Garrick Holly. Garrick Holly graduated from St. Mary's University in Winona, Minnesota, with a Bachelor of Arts in Graphic Design. He began working in stained glass in 2002 while apprenticing with a Minnesota stained glass firm. There he learned to perform all aspects of the art of stained glass, including design, layout, painting, and silk screening, with a strong emphasis on restoration. In 2006, Holly joined Willet Hauser, working mostly as a glazier on both new windows and on restoration projects. His graphics arts abilities greatly aided in the documentation of restoration projects. Holly has worked on the restoration of multiple Tiffany windows, including a project involving a large Tiffany window at Trinity Church in Galveston, Texas, that was extremely damaged during Hurricane Ike. In 2009, Garrick attended the Forum for the Conservation and Restoration of Stained Glass Windows held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, a meeting of international experts from the United States and Europe sharing expertise and experiences. He now serves as Vice President of Studio Operations at Willet Hauser Architectural Glass Incorporated. David Krejci. David Krejci's work in stained glass began in 1986 when he apprenticed with the New England Stained Glass Studio, eventually advancing there from glazier to project manager and later production manager. He joined the Willet Hauser team in 1999. As the head of the restoration department, Krejci has been responsible both individually and in conjunction with others for the planning, administration, and execution of many detailed stained glass restoration projects. His work on both new and restoration projects has included work by such studios as Tiffany, Lafarge, Holiday, Lamb, Kempe, Coles, Booth, Burnham, and Maitland Armstrong. There's a photo of Garrick Holly working on a window restoration for Dark County Center for the Arts, Greenville, Ohio, and another one showing David Krejci measuring a window panel on site. Michael Limburger. Michael Limburger holds a Bachelor of Arts in English from Kenyon College and a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Painting and Sculpture from the University at Buffalo, New York. His work in stained glass began in 2006, when Limburger began his apprenticeship as a glazier and painter. Upon the retirement of Jim McConnell, he began pattern making for the studio. Soon after, he worked to develop the company's digitized layout system, which uses specialized stained glass programs and a cutting plotter. Additionally, Limburger is adept at Norman slab glazing, glass plating, repairs, painting background mats, stencil designing, frame rendering utilizing computer-aided design and drafting, CADD, estimating job costs, and meeting deadlines. Limburger departed the studio in the fall of 2016. Gregory R. Kujak. Gregory R. Kujak began working in stained glass when he apprenticed with Hauser Art Glass in 1975. Since then, he has worked as a glazier on both new windows and restoration projects. Kujak is especially adept at analyzing and planning the restoration of windows with a difficult multi-layer construction. He functions as a team leader on restoration projects and has assisted in the restoration of windows by Willet, Tiffany, Lafarge, Koenig, Lamb, Mayer, DeScenzo, Zettler, and the Tyrolean Studios. He was involved in a Tiffany restoration project in Baltimore, Maryland, which earned the studio the Baltimore Building and Congress and Exchange's Craftsmanship Award for the high quality of craftsmanship exhibited in the care and restoration of the stained glass windows. Dick Brang. Dick Brang began his work in stained glass with Hauser Art Glass, where he began his apprenticeship in 1968. During his time with the studio, Brang worked his way up the ranks, eventually earning the title of studio superintendent, which he held from 1994 until 2004. As studio superintendent, Brang was responsible for ensuring that studio artisans were paired with the best possible projects given their skill level. A hands-on superintendent, Brang taught studio artisans the craft skills needed to create and restore stained glass windows. He was especially adept at finding proper replacement glass when originals had been destroyed. His organizational skills allowed him to keep track of even the smallest detail on the multiple projects in the studio. By attending a variety of restoration workshops and seminars, Brang kept himself and his staff informed on the latest practices in restoration. Over his many years with the studio, he either restored or supervised the restoration of windows by most of the major stained glass studios of the past 100 years, among which are masterpieces by Willet, Tiffany, Lafarge, Koenig, Lamb, Mayer, DeScenzo, Zettler, Tyrolean Studios, and many others. There is a photo of Dick Brang performing finishing touches to a historic restoration of a large Tiffany window located at Brown Memorial Park Avenue Presbyterian Church in Baltimore, Maryland. The 2003 project earned Willet Hauser an award for outstanding craftsmanship by the Baltimore Building and Congress Exchange. Jeff Post. Jeff Post began his work in stained glass at the Hauser Art Glass Company in 1987 as a glazier. Since then, he has gained experience in all aspects of the craft of leaded stained glass and has also worked as a craftsman in faceted glass. In restoration work, Jeff's projects have included challenging multi-layer construction windows by Tiffany, Lamb, and others. He is especially experienced in the extraction, transportation, and reinstallation of large and complex older windows being restored. He was an integral player in the extraction and transportation of a large Tiffany window from a church in Cadiz, Ohio, that was later restored in the studio. Gregg Witness. Studio floor manager Gregg Witness began working in stained glass in 1997 as an apprentice before joining the Willet Hauser team in 2000. Since then, he has worked as a glazier on new window projects as well as restoration projects. Witness has been involved in the restoration of some of the most iconic studios in the history of stained glass, including Willet, Tiffany, Lafarge, Koenig, Lamb, Mayer, DeScenzo, Zettler, and the Tyrolean Studios. He was involved in a Tiffany restoration project in Baltimore, Maryland, which earned the studio the Baltimore Building Congress Exchange's Craftsmanship Award for the high quality of craftsmanship exhibited in the care and restoration of the stained glass windows. Ronn Parsons. The foundation of Ronn Parsons' education and background is based entirely on art and glass. He has been an art instructor, worked as a painter and sculptor, and is adept at architectural renderings. His work in glass began with an apprenticeship at Peter Morris Hot Glass in 1983, which he completed when he joined Hauser Art Glass in 1986. Since then, he was active as an excellent designer and glass selector until his departure from the company in 2015. His experience in laying out a project and implementing a plan to see it through to completion was one of his greatest abilities. In both the creation of new windows and the restoration of the older ones, Ronn was responsible for making sure that specifications for all support and framing were accurate. He was especially good at solving technical problems if difficulties arose during a project. Additionally, he created full-scale cartoons for our artisans. There's a photo of Ron Prodzinski examining a piece of mouth-blown glass. Donald Grochowski, 1937 to 2008. The late Donald S. Grochowski's career in stained glass began in 1961 with an apprenticeship at the Hauser Art Glass Company. Throughout his long-running career, Grochowski worked for the studio all but 2 years, 1973 to 1974, when he moved to Kansas City to work with the Hopcraft Studios. At Willet Hauser, he worked in all aspects of the craft, including repair and restoration, but his main specialty was faceted glass. Grochowski's layout engineering skills were used extensively to aid clients in developing proper framing for their windows. He was extremely skillful in selecting the right colors for the right project. Grochowski knew his palette of faceted glass, and on occasions, when the palette lacked the right color or textural effect that he desired, he created it by developing new techniques for plating thinner glass on the faceted glass dowels or edge-gluing special glasses together. He was an integral part of the Metropolitan Transit Authority of New York City project, a commission that allowed Willet Hauser to fabricate hundreds of faceted glass panels for the New York City transit stations. The project involved a competition which called upon artists from other media to submit artwork for future transit stations. It was Grochowski's responsibility to translate the selected designs into faceted glass panels. A dedicated and talented artisan, he worked up until his death in 2008. And there is a photograph of Donald Grochowski selecting a glass palette.